Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my wine channel. Today is another in my wine talk series, and today I'm going to be talking about wine corks. Cork stoppers are what seals a bottle. Comes primarily from the bark of the cork oak tree. And to me, there's so much information that a wine bottle and a cork gives you. Especially with older bottles, this has been their history. So if it's a 40-year-old bottle, that bottle and the cork tell the history of that wine. And I find that a lot of people don't take the attention and care. They look at a cork, but they're not getting all the clues from the cork. So I'm going to kind of share my views of how I look at corks and what type of information I get from them. How a cork works is that a cork is supposed to seal a bottle with minimal oxygenation. So there's two schools of thoughts in terms of when you seal with cork. Cork is waterproof, but it's not oxygen proof. So there's two schools of thought. One is that people say that, oh, the cork lets a little bit of oxygen interact with the wine. The second school of thought, which I'm more prone to believe, is that inside a cork, a fresh cork, will be pockets of air or oxygen. And as that is sealed and as that ages, within the first 3 or 5 years, that oxygen interacts with the wine, and that's why the wine gets oxygenated. The cork's meant to expand, so the cork actually is very elastic and expands, and you'll see in new corks they are very spongy, and so that's good. What happens, and that's why you have to store a wine on the side, because that will keep the cork from drying out. If a cork dries out, then the elasticity comes out of there. The oxygen comes out of the cork, and so then it starts to shrink. And once it shrinks, then oxygen will get up. It won't be a seal, an airtight seal, or a waterproof seal. So the wine will start seeping, and that's when you'll see wine bleeding up the side, and you'll see oxygen, which will create horizontal cuts in the cork. So that's really the whole emphasis of cork. It's a good elastic material that allows oxygen to interface with wine in a minimal stage. Now, of course, if it's too much, if again the cork dries out and it shrinks and too much oxygen gets in, then it's a problem, because you'll get a wet cork and you might get some moldiness, and so that type of thing is not good. So one thing I want to caution people about doing when they're at a restaurant is to over sniff the cork and overemphasize the cork, because a lot of times people are just uncomfortable. A sommelier gives you a cork and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. I'm supposed to smell it. Really, the whole idea with cork is just to smell it quickly to make sure it smells okay or has no smell, to just visually take a look at it quickly and to put it down. Really, that's all it is. I see sometimes people smelling it over and over, oh, it's beautiful. But to me, that's kind of silly, because you've got the wine right there. So why would you want to be smelling a cork when you would, like, if it's so beautiful, why would you smell the cork? Why wouldn't you smell the wine? Likewise, if the wine is off, the best indication is really to smell the wine, not the cork. The cork will give you some indication. Oh, if it's kind of smelling a little bit moldy or like wet cardboard, that gives you, oh, maybe I would be more careful with wine and kind of smell it more carefully. But there's no, to me, I think that's not a thing that you should be doing, like concentrating on the cork in that sense. Smell the wine. You have the wine in front of you. The other thing that people do, and I do this too, I keep these for keepsakes in terms of like special bottles, and they smell them back and say that still, I can still smell it. That you really can't smell it. There's impossible. What you are doing is you're remembering it, and your mind is actually remembering that wine and the smell of that wine. And if you don't believe me, try to do like put some cologne on a t-shirt and then put it out there for like 5 years. And see if you smell it in 5 years. I don't think it'll have the same aroma anymore because it dissipates after a while. And so to me, that's great. Keep your corks. But when people tell me after 20 years they can still smell, the cork still has smell, I don't think that's possible. But again, I'm not, if I'm incorrect, those scientists out there, you tell me I'm incorrect. But it's mostly that your memory or your mind is kind of telling you what the smell is coming, what that cork or that wine is recollecting, and it's kind of more a brain and mental type memory rather than the actual smell. I started doing this video, but I found it very tough to actually show what I was talking about it, and unfortunately I don't have a lot of all my corks are pretty good, so that's kind of unfortunate. I can't show you what I want to show you. But okay, so for instance, these are new corks like Caymus, the 2016, and many of these I have done on my channel, so you can look at them. This one is coming up, the Cantina Zapata. It's a new cork, so you'll see there's a little bit of redness on the where the game went in, so that's good. That means it's probably been stored vertically, and then, or horizontally, sorry. And then you'll see, I don't know if you can see this on the video, but it looks like this part is a little bit larger or fatter than the top. That's good because that means there's less elasticity, and I can actually feel it. So when I run my hands around here, I can feel that there's some elasticity in this cork. And that's good. For a new cork, you should be able to feel that, and that just means it's been sealing the bottle well. Likewise with these ones, like I can actually, if I press hard on the cork, I can actually feel the elasticity. This is the Caymus. Again, this is not a real cut. It's just, I guess for me, probably I put in the wine opener that way, but you can see it's very smooth. There's actually not a lot. Oh, here, sorry, this end, that's right, this should be red, so that's fine. That means it's been in contact. If that was like totally white, that would be a problem. As compared to two corks, this cork, I don't know if you can see, is a little bit chafy, and you can see cuts developing, which should not happen. That, to me, is a sign of oxidation. That means there's certain oxidation that's gone in. So I would say the quality of storage of this wine is not as good as the quality of storage of the Caymus. Let's go to an older, so this one is the La Violette 66. So you can see how much the cork has shrank, right, compared to new corks. But that's okay because you'd expect that with the 66. The key is and there's some bleeding, which is expected. So if it was totally wet, that would be a problem, I think. Even with 66, that's not a huge problem, but look at the top. The key is, in this situation, look at the top. Even though the bottom part has kind of shrank, the top part is actually still pretty good, which means even if the wine went up a little bit, it's still being sealed. So that's, to me, a fairly good cork for 66. Again, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of bad corks, and that's a good thing for me, but not good for examples. So what would be a bad cork? So this is, I guess this is what, Mouton, I don't see the year on this, 2009. So again, you'll see characteristics, some redness where it is. That probably means it's horizontally stored. And then not a lot of bleeding. A little bit, which is expected for older wine, just a little bit is fine, and not a lot of cuts. And what the cuts are, if you see this is a little bit of a cut, but there's not a lot of inconsistencies. There's a little bit of a cut here, not much. You'll see some wines, they have huge horizontal cuts in the wine. That's generally not a good sign. And so you'll see most of the corks that I have, I'm really fortunate. They're very, very clean. And that is normally a sign of good storage. You want kind of that type of thing, and I've been very fortunate. This one is the 07. This is not a cut. This is, I don't think this is a cut. I think this is, oh, this might be a cut. Yes, that's an example of a cut. Sometimes it's because I've done something wrong with the actual opening of the wine, but that actually looks like a cut. And it's one, but that's not very deep. It's just hairline. It's just on the surface. But some bottles have very, very deep cuts, and a lot of them, and a lot of bleeding. That's generally not good. Couple more things I wanted to show you. Some people ask me about crystals and sometimes you'll see crystals. That's just sediment and titrates. That's not an issue. It's neither good nor bad in my opinion. It just happens that sometimes titrates develop on the cork, or there's sediment in the bottle. That's fine. That doesn't really bother me quite a bit. And sometimes you'll get a mold on the cork on the top. That again doesn't bother me at all, because mold, that means that it's probably stored in a very humid environment. As long as it wasn't too humid, that's a good thing, because if it's not humid enough, the cork will dry. So this kind of moldiness at the top is actually quite good, as long as it doesn't extend to the bottom of the cork. So I went through kind of the corks I have. These are kind of the worst corks that I can find. So this is the 05 Malacate Saint-Exupéry, which I've had, which was wonderful. But as an example cork, you can see a cut here. And this is after 15 years, so it's still pretty good. But there are a number of cuts in this cork. And I think a lot of times, whenever you have cuts or holes, that usually is a sign of oxidation. Like an unclean cork, that something's not good. But again, for a wine that's 16 years, that's expected. This is the 07 Chave, and again, there's some bleeding on it, probably okay, and you'll see some cuts starting to develop in this. Let's say I was opening, would this be a problem in 40 years? Maybe. But you know, for 20 years, this is a pretty good cork. And what you're really worried about is those corks that actually look like this after 2 years. Then that would be a real problem. And that would, so again, if this comes out of a brand new bottle that you just purchased, that to me would be a problem. It shouldn't have this type of bleeding. It shouldn't have this type of coloration after 2 years. It should be clean like this cork. Hope this has been useful. And if you have any questions, please send it in the comment section. I just find corks and bottles so interesting. And until next time, happy drinking.